Welcome to Being Curious podcast show with Counselling Reflections, a podcast where we dive deep into the human experience, uncovering stories of resilience and triumph. We are proudly supported by Moskin, a UK-based skincare line infused with sea moss.
Good evening. Well, actually, I suppose what I'm saying that around the world there'll be different time zones, but where we're at today, it's 6 o'clock in the UK, and I have with us today on Being Curious with Counselling Reflection, Adedayo, Alli Esquire. And I'm here because, like many of you who are from Nigeria, born Nigeria, or part of the diaspora of Nigeria, it's Independence Day. And I thought, who can I speak to about these things, all independence? And Addy. So good evening, Addy.
Good evening.
How are you?
Fine, very fine. It's a beautiful day today.
It has been a beautiful day today, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. It's Black History Month in the United Kingdom. So it's a beautiful day.
Why do you say it's a beautiful day, and why are you acknowledging this month, October?
Oh, well, I'm acknowledging this month because it's a very beautiful month, so to speak. It's Black History Month in the United Kingdom, and it's my first Black History Month in the UK after many years. And also it's my grandmother's birthday month.
Sorry, you've broken up. Sorry, whose birthday?
My grandmother's birthday,
Oh, bless. So she was born on Nigeria's Independence Day?
No. It's a month. I said month. It's a birthday's month. It's October 3rd.
Okay.
And also it's Nigeria's birthday too, October 1st.
Tell me about that, because that's why I was quite curious to have a conversation about, I don't really know much about Nigeria. So when did Nigeria get their independence? And what does it mean to be independent?
Okay, wow, I think today, personally, I said I don't want to talk about Nigeria's independence, but, because of what is going on, but we have to talk about it because it's an historic thing, So Nigeria's independence is the 1st of October, 1960. And it's a very, very serious historical thing because we had the likes of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Sir Ahmadu Bello, and many others who fought for the Nigerian independence. They were the prominent nationalists, and other people. We had Dr. Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, so many other people all over the world. So it's a very serious thing. But as it is now, I believe there is so much skepticism because independence has not really played out the way we expected it to. So
in 1960, you managed to get your independence. Was Nigeria in 1960 or 1955 or 1959? Or, and what does independence actually mean? You've kind of said these names, but for myself, who's born in the UK, I really do not know much about Nigerians' history and how Nigeria came to have their independence. And these big names, what was important or significant about these people at this time in the 60s and 50s?
Okay, well, what I would say is that when you talk about Nigeria, I'm very happy you talked about Nigeria. Nigeria is a colonial coinage. Nigeria was a company before it was actually now amalgamated in 1914.
Nigeria is a company. Tell me more about that, because I don't understand that. How can Nigeria be a company when there's land, geographically, there were people, there's over just a vast space of culture. So why do you say it's a company?
No, I did not say it's a company. It was the Royal Niger Charter of Nigeria or something like that. Before it was now amalgamated in Nigeria under Lord Lugard, and Lady Lugard gave Nigeria, not the people of Nigeria. So it's an historical thing, not me saying that, you know. So there was never a time where the people living in the region are called Nigeria coming to say, okay, we give ourselves the name Nigeria. You know, we used to have the Yoruba dynasty, the Igbo kingdom, and whatever, you know. So
who was this lady and where did she come from?
Yeah, she's from England. You know, because Lady Lugard is the wife of the Governor General of Lagos Colony, as it then was Lord Lugard. You know, so you understand. So Nigeria was a colonial construct. You understand, for the crown to govern, as it then was. You know.
And you say this, but what was the impact of that decision? This company called Nigeria, what did that mean for the people in the region and the different dynastic populations and dynasties?
Well, I could say that was like a continuum of the, you know, with the incursion of the famous transatlantic slave trade in Africa, especially West Africa. So that was like a corporate side to the colonization of the African people. And there were treaties with the kings in Western Africa, especially in Nigeria. For instance, now there were treaties with the Crown King of Lagos then. We had Oba Kosoko, Oba Akitoye, and what have you. And where there was no, treaties, there were wars then. You know, was not I think it's a very good subject for historical appraisal.
So if I was going around my business in Nigeria at the time, what would I have seen? What would life been like for individuals living in those kind of eras, post-colonial kind of experience, and the newly formed nation?
Okay, when exactly?
Independence. I suppose anytime, yeah.
Is it in 1914 or 1960?
Oh, well, you tell me. Maybe I should be walking around more often. Maybe I'm a time traveler and I've gone back to 1914. So what would I have seen then, and maybe what would I have seen in 1960?
Yeah, in 1960, I think there was a very strong spirit of nationalism, you know, in Africa, because, you know, remember we had the First World War, we had the Second World War, and now we have the African people even being recruited from Africa to fight the Second World War, you know, and there was the spirit of nationalism was very, very high at the time. And, you know, in Ghana, Ghana was the first African country to gain its independence, I think 1957 or 58. So everybody was actually very vibrant and they wanted to be free. They needed to be free from the colonial influences at that point in time. So in the 60s, it was, if you were to be in the 60s as we speak now, is a moment of celebration. And that was the first time that they had to put down the Jack, the British flag down in Nigeria, and now put on the Nigerian flag, and they recited the new national anthem for the country at the time.
You're saying though, moving forward, so I'm a really speedy time traveler, and you're saying that the actual experiment of independence hasn't worked for Nigeria, or hasn't worked for the continent itself of Africa?
Oh, well, I could say that it has not worked for Nigeria, because I'm a Nigerian. I could say authoritatively that it has not worked for Nigeria. And when I look at it from the point of view of the spirit of nationalism that the activists and nationalists had then, which also led to the the nationalism brought about independence and also led to division too, so to speak. Because after the independence, we had the Nigerian Civil War that claimed over 2 million lives of the Igbo people.
So you had a civil war, you got independence, which would have been a wonderful thing, and people were celebrating. So when did the civil war start?
Yeah, that should be 1963, if I'm not mistaken. 1963, because we had the First Republic. We had the First Republic. You know, we had a minister and all, and trying to practice democracy in Nigeria for the first time. So we had the first military intervention in Nigeria in 1966, January 15 to be precise, and
then what happened? How come that, colonial powers have left and went about their business, packed their suitcase, and I presume gave over the power. It was a joyous thing, but quite quickly, within 6 years, you're at war. Why was you at war? And how come so many people lost their lives? 2 million people, that's extraordinary.
Yeah, so extraordinary, and it's incredibly sad that, the post-colonial and post-independence Africa had to battle and grapple with a lot of strifes and crises, and instead of the nation building that would have put us in a very good pedestal world over now, we had to battle a lot of crises and things, and so.
And what was it? Was it because the geographical map was very different? Was it that people wanted to kind of go back to old boundaries? What started it all as a young nation?
Well, I actually feel that, if a house, like, they say, if a house is divided against itself, it could not stand, As a people, after the independence, we were not really focused on nation building and building the continent of Africa or reconciling with our brothers and sisters in diaspora. We're actually concerned about some petty dynastic pride, that really precluded us from.
What makes you say that? Because you're living in 2024, and what makes you say that it was petty? Because clearly, when people go to war, it might have started off as a petty squabble, but clearly, if you're at a point where so many lost their lives, what was it that at the time, maybe it's your parents' generation or your grandparents' generation weren't able to do?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's take a very circumspective look into the 60 politics. Like in Nigeria, post-independence, we're practicing a regional government kind of arrangement. It was parliamentarian. So we had the northern region, we had the middle belt, we had the western region, and we have the eastern region, and everything was going very smoothly. So, but at a point in time, we just discovered oil in Nigeria, not far from that time. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, oil was discovered in the eastern part of Nigeria. So the eastern part of Nigeria said, okay, we want self-determination for ourselves because we have the oil and now we can be on our own. And don't forget that at that time, during the post-independence, agriculture was flowing. Nigeria had cocoa, we had so many other opportunities, but with the oil boom, there seemed to be
there was stability across the nation. And then when oil was discovered, the people felt actually it's in our area and we want the right to be able to govern ourselves independently.
Yes. So and there were also other intrinsic factors and intrinsic factors too, and the Igbo people felt, okay, do you know what? We are going to go on our own, the Eastern people, let me put it that way, because not all Eastern people are Igbos or, so they said we want to be self-determined and we govern ourselves according to the resources that we have. And if you recall that the first coup in Nigeria was tagged the Igbo coup, because most of the people that died in that coup were Northerners and partly Yorubas. So it's I think it's very, very important for us, now celebrating Nigeria independence, to reappraise and reevaluate our historical line of thought for us to be able to really develop as a continent.
I'm a therapist and I think about kind of mental health. How does a nation recover when there's been such violence amongst themselves. It's like internal kind of violence to themselves as brothers and sisters, neighbors, cousins, living in different parts of regions or being united under the umbrella of Nigeria. How do people recover from that, do you think?
Yeah, well, I believe we have a lot to do, because I think as a country now, as a Nigerian, I feel that we are in denial of so many, many things, and we cannot wash that away with cosmetics or, traditional cultural dances and food tasting. We need to actually go back and heal.
But what makes you say that as a professional? What makes you say, we're in denial? I am a diaspora. My genes have Nigerian bits in there, amongst all other things, because I'm a child of the diaspora. But as a Nigerian man, what makes you say, okay, when I look inside of my country, I feel that there's so much we need to do?
Yeah, because when you look at the last elections in Nigeria, for instance, now, there were so many name callings, we had, this person, no, it's the time for Yoruba to be president. Oh, now is the time for the Igbo man. If the Igbo man becomes the president, they're going to succeed, Like, we still don't trust ourselves. We still don't unite. We still do name callings, It's evident.
But is that, whose fault is that then? Is that the people's fault? Is that a government fault? Is it ancestry, tribalism, in the sense that we all want to be seen to belong to people? Why is it it's interesting, like here in the UK we might divide ourselves by Labour Party, Conservative Party and the Green Party, or the North and the South, but generally speaking, when you hear about people who feel are British or English or Scottish or Welsh, they still can govern. So those internal squabbles you have, like here in the UK, and that's really kind of highlighted when we have general elections and local elections. But what is it specifically about Nigeria that kind of wants their people to have more say in, more opportunity in government? Is there a sense that maybe one part of the nation succeeds more in power than other parts?
Well, I would rightly say that it's all about miseducation, because it's just like what played out in Rwanda. We had the Hutu and the Tutsis, and because prior to pre-colonial era, we had lived as neighbors. The Yoruba man is here, the Hausa man is here, the Igbo man is there. We lived and there was no conflict, and we trade along those lines, even till the nows. You understand? So I believe there is miseducation and there is misunderstanding, and there's this lack.
Okay, so where is this miseducation from? You talk about before kind of the nation forming, there was colonialism. And before that, I assume we're talking about before Europeans stepped onto the plains of West Africa. Their interference changed a lot of the boundaries that we now see in Africa. And I can't remember, what was the conference? Was it the Berlin conference where they divided European nations picked different parts of Africa to claim as their own? Is this what we're talking about here? That the impact of a couple of centuries ago on Africa means that people don't feel safe? And can we use that as an excuse?
No, it's not. I don't believe it's an excuse. You understand? Even before the Berlin conference, we had the Portuguese, for instance. Now they had been on the continent because we had a lot of black people, fighting wars and things in Japan, as early as 1558. You understand? So I believe that it is very, very important for us as a continent and as a people not to be in denial, and not to be miseducated, and not to just come around and like the first time, because I recall, I was telling someone today, I said 12 years ago, October 1st, I was doing a program in Nigeria to kind of educate people on, religious extremism, because at that time, the Boko Haram issue was just starting to gather momentum in Nigeria. And I was like, we need to come as a people. We don't need to fight each other. Boko Haram simply means education. Western education is an abomination, and whoever is there, because I remember one of my lecturers then in the university, Barrister Sani, was actually, okay, let me just leave that aside. He was actually a victim of that trend, being a lecturer in the northern part of Nigeria, it was murdered because they felt like, okay, you are Western education, whatever. So when the people are not properly enlightened as to what they should do, they lose their focus. And when we pretend about the reality of these gory things, it becomes a very big problem, and we are not able to develop ourselves in terms of science, in terms of technology, in terms of art, and in terms of so many, many things,
It's interesting you saying this because, there has been, in terms of, what am I going to say? Often in history, people celebrate, the victors celebrate the spoils. They celebrate their opportunities, their resources, and they do the storytelling. And in some ways, you're saying, okay, as the continent of Africa, or maybe Nigerians, we're not doing our own storytelling. And so what happens is we are miseducated. But in the fact that we have access to the internet and we've got resources and we can do our own education, what stops people now finding out the truth about their own history, do you think? What stops, is there a truth? I wonder is there a truth around your own story as a nation? Because there's lots of people living in Nigeria. I assume there is a load of stories to be told.
Yeah, and I'm very happy you talked about that, but because I can tell you that 20% out of over 300 million people that stay in Nigeria, only 20% have access to sustainable electricity. And only
so over 300 million, only 20% have sustainable electricity.
Yes.
So why? Tell me why.
No.
And I'm sitting here with privilege of knowing that I don't have that problem.
You understand? So now when people say, oh, why don't we know this? People don't have access to power. And now the cost of fuel in Nigeria, not many people can even afford to buy fuel. People have to trek miles to where they're going to now because of bad policies, because of bad government. Given the opportunity, you see people coming from Nigeria, coming from Ghana, coming from Gabon, coming from Mali, and what have you, they come to the UK and they excel and they do well, just not because of anything, light, electricity, because they could.
So for you, when you look at miseducation, you're actually saying something about the infrastructure. You're saying that consecutive governments and policies haven't thought long-term about accessing the whole country in terms of resources. So 20% of people have access to those opportunities. So 80% of people don't have reliable source of electricity. But I am baffled. If kind of thinking, I'm baffled because I kind of see when I go TikTok and Instagram, I see really successful weddings and really wonderful, beautiful, spiritual people. So I think, okay, there is resourcing there in the country. Why is it not flowing to the four corners of Nigeria?
Yeah, I believe the education of the people makes it possible. You understand? Because like the few people that have access to sustainable internet and every other thing, very, very few percentage of people actually show the other aspect of things happening in the country. And it's so sad because at the end of the day, even those showing that actually get trapped in the whole mess, And I believe at this point, that the Nigerian independence for 2024 should be a wake-up call to us all to speak truth to power and express ourselves in the best.
But I think what is interesting, people would say that they are speaking the truth. You know, some of the challenges that we have as individuals, we often think we're more divided when we're all actually, we have a variety of things that unite us. So you're saying, okay, at this moment in time, I feel my nation is divided, that there are things that I want the nation to kind of wake up to. So what stops you in terms of the role that you do in society from spearheading this conversation?
Well, what stopped me is not just now that I'm saying this. I've always been saying this. And it's not the first time I'm saying this. I've always been saying this. We have always been saying this, you know, and that is like a continuum, you understand, from a very long time ago, you know, from as early as the 1800s, you know, we've been saying this, like there has to be a change because very few of us will keep saying this, that there has to be a constructive change, a real change. We need to unify.
But what does a constructive change, real change look like? Because, okay, you're saying this, but do you not also see the progress that has also ensued? Can you is it an and or? Can you have this movement of progress working at the same time as well as talking?
Oh, sorry.
Or is there no progress at all that you're seeing?
Sorry, please. Can you come back? I don't get you on that.
I suppose what I'm trying to think, like, okay, you're saying that we've been saying this a long time. My question would be, well, actually, is there progress? Because sometimes we say, okay, nothing's changed when everything has changed around us. The conversation that you had in 1960 and the conversation you have in 2024, are they the same conversation?
Of course, they are different conversations, and they are also the same conversation. And actually, I think, like they said, the progress is revolutionary and evolutionary at the same time, because we still have a lot of changes. Because I could say for a fact that music and art has played a very, very vital role, even though it's been neglected in Africa, but they have played a very vital role in actually bringing about this change. Let me give you an example. For instance, now in Nigeria, when they do the annual budget, the budget like 50% for security, budgets, education has just like 3% for the budget, as a matter of fact. And so if there is no proper welfare for the people and all what have you, and education, so definitely there will be insecurity. So I believe that, you know, we should reflect and make the budget and all the things we do, let's award more to education, to information, you know, and agriculture, art, more than
okay, so you're saying, okay, a great half of the budget goes on security. And the government may argue, okay, we need to have half the budget on security because there are parts of the country feels unsafe at the moment. And for us to stabilize those parts, we need to kind of put those resources there. Or are you saying actually this is a way of not helping our society? Because if we had more money going towards education and other resources, actually would stabilize the country because we'd have those resources and people would be able to kind of, it's almost like Maslow, you know, hierarchy of needs. If you get the foundation right, everything else can rise to self-actualization.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Some things to think about. So you kind of just intimated that art and culture is being downplayed in Africa or maybe Nigeria, because we can't speak to all the nations. Why is that?
It's bad government and corruption and greed, you know, because like when we think about personal aggrandizement above the commonwealth of the people, so and when the commonwealth of the people is being mismanaged to fund the luxurious life of some individuals, you know, probably internationally or locally, then we misplace our priorities as a people and we fail.
So you're saying that those in power often don't kind of look at the needs of their local constituents, or they do, but they don't think long term to look at the wider implications of their reliance on that power.
Well,
I hear this all the time in terms of the talks of kind of, how do we change things? And these big ideas. But what small things can people do to kind of change that? If music is the key.
Yeah. What I would say is that we should not just look at the people in power. We have to look at the followership too. And also the fact that religion has played a very fundamental role in setting the African people, back to the base of in human degradation. Because, for instance, now in Africa, where people should be looking at practical things and constructive things, how do we get this for ourselves? How do we do this? Then we pray to a creator that is going to take us to heaven. So I think we need to stop the medieval health scare and just complaining about the people in power alone. The followership too needs to wake up, and they needs to it's good to believe.
So from your point of view, that people come to religion for all sorts of reasons, but there's an element that you're saying that actually we need to not look to the greater power to kind of solve all our problems. We need to look at the practical reliance of ourselves to make changes for the community. Is that what you're saying? Because I think these big sweeping statements are useful in conversations, but actually some people need a roadmap.
They need a roadmap, and it's sweeping, because words are not just ornamental, because these are actually born out of, over 500 years of the post-traumatic experience we've had from the slavery time. Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and all these people, they were religious people. They were actually concerned about the actual development of the African race, the emancipation of the African people. Marcus Garvey, Patrice Lumumba talk about the economic independence for the people, so that African people are not just seen as just, puppets, and we have this puppet show. So many things happen, and, it's like we are being very cosmetic about it, and it has to change.
Who when you say we're being cosmetic, so because I suppose the civil rights period was a fantastic time for change. And I also think there's been the age of the internet has been a fantastic time for change, still to come, still more to do, because I think there's a bias in the system of the internet in terms of what it privileges. Even ChatGPT is kind of not balanced in terms of its referencing. So I think that's for another conversation. But I wonder what it is that you're expecting from people now in terms of, okay, you kind of identify the institutions, the churches, the political system, you're asking them to do things, to think about the communities more. But individually, what is it that you want us to do? Because actually, some people, when they don't have the resources that you may have, it's a luxury to be able to say, I'm going to stand up and kind of fight for my rights when I don't have electricity and I don't have access to the things that make me feel safe to be able to stand up.
Okay, well, what I would say is that, we all feel this thing. We all experience it on a daily basis. If you, as an individual now, I'm an individual, if I have access to certain things, for instance now, I'm very sure I have over 20 other people. Someone said, share your riches with the poor before they share the poverty with you. So if you think you have access to all these things and you can do all of these things and other people don't have it, then you don't have it. So it is important for us to have a systematized education and know that as a people we need to develop, like a very good case in point is like, I think there was a time I read this book, Three Daughters of China, and in that book, it was very instructive. And also the Little Red Book, how the people of China from abject poverty, they were able to get to a level or at least basic human dignity for themselves as a people, as overpopulated as they could be. So it is important for us as a people to have that drive, And also, I would say that we well, like you rightly said, it could be a sweeping statement. We need to just wake up, on how we use the internet, how we use the TikTok, Instagram, and all this social media. It should actually be directed to how we as a people, guarantee economic independence for ourselves. As a black man in Australia, in China, in Japan, and everything, people look at you from where you're coming from. They expect you to be like a beggar, like a fraud, or something. So we need to.
Where are you going with this? Why do you say that? I'm just curious. Right? Why do you assume that people perceive you in a particular way? We're looking at because today I was the other day, not today, sorry. I think it was yesterday. I was in a taxi, and the driver said, "Wow, one of the most brilliant minds is a Nigerian mind." And then you're saying people are looking at me in a particular way. Where are you seeing these people?
Okay, now I want to give you a ratio of that. When you look at the ratio of that, you understand? I could tell you that it's just like 1 in 100. Because when people see Nigerians or Africans, what they feel like is that, they have all these statistics in the world. The most corrupt country is the world. The next thing you will see, Nigeria is either number 3 or number 5. It's there for you to see. Do you understand? And now I'm very happy that people are now kind to say, do you know what? The narrative is there. We have like a new in the UK, for instance. Now we have a Nigerian jurist who is now appointed to the ICJ, International Court of Justice in Hague. And everybody said, you know what? Let this go viral because people don't talk about this. So now we have people that are advocating that let all this news spread.
But do you not think it's interesting? Because I sometimes think when we look at ideas, and I'm not saying that the world is fair, and I'm not saying that there are bias in the system, but what I am inviting us to also think about is actually what stories should we be telling ourselves and what stories can we relate to? And I think there's something about when really good things happen, we should celebrate that. But I think that's also within the systems that I live in here. Often when I think about news, I think about news in a very negative light. There's a negative slant and bias to the information gathering. So maybe you're right that people perceive Africans from all over the world with a different light. But I also think individually and collectively, we don't have to kind of listen to those stories as well.
Yeah, well, in the early 1920s, for instance, now, there was this Hollywood narrative, The Birth of a Nation. I don't know whether you know of that movie, and it gave a narrative of the black man as a beast. But now I'm very glad that, we have things like Chadwick Boseman, everybody now feeling the African story, and it's Black History Month. So I believe it's an opportunity for us to put the message out there and also, just don't get pessimistic about the whole situation. We need to be optimistic and...
it's interesting, isn't it? Because absolutely, some of the films and education, when I did my degree in art, in textiles, some of the old books that I read and my lectures had Africa in a very particular way in the nation. But what's interesting is that actually, when we look at kind of the influence of African culture historically, before the colonial era and after the colonial imperialistic ideas, style and culture and traditions permeate through other cultures. African culture is in the Caribbean. When we talk about food and you say Dukunu and I say Dukunu, we're saying the same language. You tell me that my people are Yoruba, and rightly so, but I don't know that, but you tell me, I do know something. I think the miseducation also comes from home. And I say home is also Nigeria. The miseducation of Nigerians about the diasporas or about being Jamaican or maybe being Caribbean.
Yeah. I think that is very interesting, and I believe that we need to kind of celebrate more, and leave the pessimism. Like when we have opportunities to experience Black history or carnivals, it gives us an opportunity to reflect, because I believe sometimes it could be too serious, about these issues. And when we have things that kind of relaxes us, like probably the heart, the food tasting, the music, I believe that it also gives us the access to penetrate the other aspects of us. Like someone said, for Africa to me is more than a glamorous fact. It is an historical truth. No man knows where he's going unless he knows where he has been and exactly how he arrived at his present place. So I think it's very important for us as a people, not just Africans, everyone, we just come together and unify as humanity and appreciate ourselves, because we Africans have made our contribution to the fund of human knowledge by extending the frontiers of art, culture, and spiritual values. So it's very important for us to appreciate that. And this is Black History Month. It's another opportunity for us in the United Kingdom. In February is another opportunity for us in the United States of America. Then in Nigeria, every time it's always an opportunity.
So for Nigerian independence, we've spent this session so far being quite somber. We've had to put into context, because in some ways we had to have this conversation for us to kind of move on. I would like to know, who are the great writers? Who are the great, books we should all be reading? What's the great music? Because you play some music and I'm thinking, this is really interesting. And there's some big time, old time tunes that you dance to. So who should we be listening to?
First, I think I'm very happy you talked about the books, because now, in the apartheid South Africa, for instance, now, poets and novelists and writers that played a very, very, very significant role. And unfortunately for us now as Africans, we don't even study like we used to, in Nigeria, for instance.
Who are you talking about when you're thinking of a book to read? Because I know you're an avid reader. So who should we be reading?
What did you say, please?
I know you're an avid reader. Who should we be reading about?
Okay, first, I think it's important for us to give props to people from the past, especially during the independence period, because it's not just Nigeria. I think virtually all African countries after Ghana started getting their independence from Britain in the 60s, So
what names are they then? Do you have any names?
We have Christopher Okigbo. We have Buchi Emecheta. We have Ayikwe Hama. He's a Ghanaian. We have the patriarch, the novelist, Professor Wole Soyinka. We have just a lot of them, Steve Biko, and don't ever forget, Chinua Achebe. Chinua Achebe, very, very prolific. And I know that Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, is a prodigy, And
I have never heard any of these names, but Biko I have there, I think.
Yeah, Chimamanda actually, she wrote Americana, Color Purple, and even did something with Beyonce at a point in time. She did a spoken word, very, very vibrant voice in Africa and the world as a whole. I think she won it.
In terms of music, who should we be listening to? What are the tunes that you grew up with that represent Nigerian culture?
Oh, well, not just, okay. Let me say Christine Igbokwe, Sonny Okosun, King Sonny Ade, you have Ebenezer Obey, you have Bongo Zikwe, you have Aruno Shola, you have a whole lot of them. Fela Nicola Kokuti, is an iconoclast, is on a different part. Adedayo.
And if you were eating dinner on your Independence Day, what will I be eating? What would be representative of Nigeria?
Oh man, okay, it's gonna be pounded yam with eforiro.
Pounded yam with for what on earth is that then?
Eforiro. I think you guys call it kalalu. You know.
Oh, so okay. And what else would I be eating?
You can have some bush meat. You can have Ijebu food like amala and egusi. You know, you can have ukwobi and isiewu. So many. We have a lot of.
And are there any typical drinks that represents Nigerian culture?
Oh yeah, definitely. We have palm wine. We have burukutu. You know, we have so many beautiful things. And in the north as well, we have masa. We have suya. You know, we have over 250 ethnic groups. You know, it's a beautiful country and a beautiful continent. So if you could only unify, and is a tapestry that's so overwhelming.
So if you had an opportunity to invite your heroes to dinner to celebrate today in all its complexity that you've highlighted earlier, who would you invite?
Who would I invite? Like, I don't understand.
Dead or alive?
Okay, who I will bring now
Yes.
From all of those ancestors?
Yes.
Oh, that's a very big one. But I think I would like to bring Nina Simone.
Nina Simone. Who else?
Okay. Maya Angelou.
Okay. Who else?
Okay. Tupac Amaru Shakur.
Okay. Anyone else?
That's
some big hitters there. What would you ask them? And is there any Nigerians in the house that you have missed? Because I've noticed that they come from the diasporas.
Yeah, no, I think I embody those ones. They are inside of me already, you know. Like they're inside of me, you know, I think they're in me already, you know. And I've had experience with them one or two times, you know, probably, you know, it's a very beautiful one.
And then what would you like young people who are growing in the continent of Nigeria and the diasporas to understand about Nigerian culture?
Oh, well, I believe they need to understand that Africa is home, you know. Africa is home, you know. Femi Kuti had a track like that. It's called Alkebulan. Because back then, pre-colonial era, Africa used to be described as Alkebulan, you know. So they need to know that Africa is home and we are one, you know, whether on the continent and diaspora. And anytime we come around, it is home. And also, I would like to tell our government to make the continent safe for us to come around and experience the beauty of Africa, you know, and its resources, you know.
Adedayo Alli Esquire, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on being curious with Counselling Reflections. I really hope that your dream comes true for Nigeria